And then I took that money, and my husband and I, we bought a cottage in a different place in PEI. And I've really been healing my relationship with Prince Edward Island, I think, and healing my childhood wounds through creating these new memories with my children.
From NCPR, welcome to Northwards. People, ideas, and conversations from and about Northern New York, Vermont, and beyond. I'm Mitch Tyke.
Support for the Northwards podcast comes from the J.C. Steiniger and M.E. McDonald Charitable Fund at Adirondack Community Foundation in support of the Adirondack Community Foundation, building stronger Adirondack communities.
Glasses, I've found, are a great... Now you look very tired.
Do I look
Check
very
those
tired?
bags at the door, man.
Okay, here's why I'm tired. So my brother has been visiting for the last
Ethan took off his
week.
glasses, by the way, to demonstrate how tired he looked.
Yes, and I'm sure that I feel more tired than I look. So here's the thing. My younger brother has been visiting for the last week. Our older brother is getting married. Lots of fun. However, his flight this morning was out of Watertown at 6 a.m.
And for people who don't know where Watertown is in comparison to where we are sitting now.
It's about an hour and a half away. Not the worst drive. However, when you have to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning to ensure that you've got time to get gas and account for any other stops you might need to make, it makes for a long day.
Is there any place you can stop at 3 o'clock in the morning between your home and Watertown, New York?
There was a 24-hour gas station in Canton, which is perfect because I forgot to gas up yesterday because I'm an idiot. So I got about 3.5 hours of sleep before getting in the car, and then drove him to the airport. He fell asleep in the car. I was listening to a podcast, very pleasant. I get
Not this podcast, obviously.
not this one because this one isn't out. So get him to the airport, drive away, 20 minutes away from the airport. I get a call from my brother, and he says, "Where are you?" And I just throw up my hands, like, "Where do you think I am?" Like, I'm driving, right? So he says, "Well, they screwed up my ticket. They switched my first and my last name. And so now we have to put in a special call to the airline. So they have to change that. But now they're telling me that I can't check any of my bags. And the problem with that is that I have 3 knives in my checked bags. One of which is like a family heirloom that he was hoping to bring back with him to
family
Arizona.
butter knife.
The family butter knife. It fixed many a Nintendo cartridge. And so they tell him he can either throw them away, that's not an option, or he can voluntarily surrender them and have somebody come pick them up. So that's what I do. I turn back around, drive another 20 minutes in the opposite direction. I go pick up the knives, and then I make my way home. I get back to my bed at about 7:20, and I lay down and I say, there's no way that I'm going to fall asleep. I fall asleep almost instantly. Unbeknownst to me, is one of those dreams where one of those moments where you're not aware that you're actually falling asleep. It just happens like instantaneously. Had this crazy stressful dream that I was fighting with my brother.
That you were sending knives to
It was about my brother. We were in the backseat of a car and we were like fist fighting, which just, I wasn't mad at him. It's just, where do dreams come from? And then I woke up and I said, well, that was really weird. There's no way I'll get back to sleep. Fell back asleep instantly. And then I started having this dream that I was at a movie. I was trying to get pizza before this movie, but when I left the Roxy Theater, I tried to make my way to Little Italy in downtown Potsdam. Little Italy.
which is a distance for people who are not familiar with downtown Potsdam, a distance of a block.
Yes, not far at all. But that block just kind of transcended time and space. I could not find my way to Little Italy. There were a bunch of other restaurants in downtown Potsdam that have no business being there and don't exist in reality. There was like a Wendy's. There was also this other weird sort of like Italian joint. But I couldn't get food at any of them because the lines were like out the door. And so I was like, whatever, I'll keep trying. And as I left this establishment, suddenly I was peering over the highway system in what was supposed to be Watertown, and I was completely lost. I was jumping over cars. I was interacting with strange, shadowy figures, and I took out my phone to use my GPS to try to get myself back to the movie theater for this movie, and my cell phone would not give me directions to Potsdam. It would only direct me to Taco Bell. And, it was one of those really, it's so
I
stupid.
feel like this is a dream that my 18-year-old son would have.
Right. It totally.
Though he really does not need directions to Taco Bell.
Nor do I. But it was, when you say it out loud, it's so stupid. But at the moment, it was really, really intense. And when I snapped awake, I said, oh, thank God I'm awake. I've never been so happy to wake up from a dream. It was so disorienting. So I'm running on 3.5 hours of sleep plus another fitful hour of sleep and then another fitful hour of sleep after
And you
that.
have weaned yourself from caffeine, right?
Right. I do not drink caffeine at all.
Because this seems like it would be the job for caffeine.
Yeah. I really, really, really had to resist the urge to get caffeinated coffee this morning. But I'm good. I'm flying solo.
How do you know that you are not still having this dream?
I had that thought this morning too.
Especially when I take off this mask. I don't have a good dream story to share with you. I'm
wow.
sorry.
Do you
No?
not have? I'm a really vivid dreamer, and it usually happens when I'm stressed or already sleep deprived. You don't have super vivid dreams?
Every once in a while, I'll remember a snippet of a dream, but my dreams tend to be about really mundane things, and they are almost always plot free.
Just freeform jazz dreams.
Well, and we've had this conversation, I think, right?
Yeah, I think so.
That I tend to prefer movies that are somewhat light on plot, and I tend to favor books that are somewhat light on plot, and
Because life is scary enough and busy enough.
well, and also life is like that, and actually, this does take me back to my 18-year-old son who just completed his last assignment of his high school career,
Oh my
which
God.
was the senior capstone project, in which he read Albert Camus' *The Stranger*.
Yep.
And compared it to his senior year of high school.
Oh, interesting.
And the point he came back with was life does not have a plot.
Yep. I agree.
And neither does The Stranger.
I agree with Charlie Tyke there. Yeah, and I also, you need a little bit of plot, but
Well, and The Stranger has a little bit of plot too.
just a tiny little bit. And I'm one of those people who doesn't necessarily need a super satisfying ending, because sometimes things just end, like this conversation.
Which we're recording at Taco Bell. It's really weird.
They keep telling us to get out, but I'm not leaving.
So this week's episode of Northwards is going to sound somewhat familiar in a disconcerting way, I think, to our regular listeners. This show is airing on the radio on North Country Public Radio, and it's our June edition featuring a couple of interviews from recent weeks, including Beth White, who is the founder and pilot in command at Habitat for Aviation, and also our conversation with singer-songwriter Jen Grant about her new album, Queen of the Straits. So here is the June edition of Northwards. This is Northwards, the monthly interview show that comes to you from the studios of North Country Public Radio. I'm Mitch Tyke. Sometimes the best stories can come right out of the rabbit hole. A couple months ago, I was signing thank you notes to people who had contributed to NCPR, and I came across one I was sending to Swanton, Vermont. I wasn't sure I knew where that was, so I Googled it, and one of the first links that popped up was to an organization based in Swanton called Habitat for Aviation. And so I went down the rabbit hole, and I found a really terrific story. It's about a group of girls and young women who are building an airplane and learning how to fix airplanes, and maybe along the way, learning how to fly airplanes as well. And it's the story of the organization's founder, Beth White, who bears more than a passing resemblance to Rosie the Riveter. She and I pulled up a couple of comfy chairs in an airplane hangar that doubles as her office in the Franklin County Airport in Swanton, just across the lake from Rouse's Point, New York, on a recent Sunday afternoon. Beth White, it is great to talk with you. Thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you so much for coming. It's such an honor to have you here.
How did you happen to become the person that founded Habitat for Aviation?
It started with a book called West with the Night. I read, it's about the story of Beryl Markham, who is this remarkable human in the 1930s, and she piloted an airplane across the Atlantic going west, and her book is called West with the Night. And I read this memoir, and I said to myself, gosh, if Beryl Markham can fly in the 1930s, how come I can't fly? So I took what's called a discovery flight, and I brought my friend Joanne. And when we landed, I had just read this book called You Are a Badass, Stop Doubting Your Greatness and Start Living an Awesome Life by Jen Sincero. And in it, she talks about really surrounding yourself with people and experiences and things that make your heart sing and that enable you to be the best, most badass version of you, because you're the only you on this planet, and you are uniquely built to contribute to something, to this time that you have. And so I turned to Joanne and I said, I'm going to call an airplane into my reality. And having read the book too, she didn't laugh. She just said, well, what color is it going to be? And I said, it's going to be green and white. And then 6 months later, my mom got a call from my middle school math teacher's wife. And before he had passed away, he and his wife had been noticing that I was taking these flying lessons on Facebook, and said, I wonder if Beth would be interested in our airplane and our hangar. And so in exchange for helping Jane get a new roof on her barn, I inherited a green and white Cessna 150. And it's a little 2-seater airplane, which I named Charlie after my middle school math teacher. And this hangar here at Franklin County Airport, and my whole life changed. So I had an airplane before I even had a pilot's license. And I learned how to fly in Charlie, and when I got my license, I looked around, and you've been here to the airport. Out of all these hangars, hundreds probably, there was only one who had a woman who owned it and worked out of it. So I decided at that point I was going to change that. And I work for Big Picture Learning, and one of our mottos is one student at a time. So I decided to start with one student at a time. And so we started with one youth, and we got her a full scholarship to get her private pilot's license, which enabled her to shave a whole year off of college. And so one youth at a time, we started with Kyra, and now she's a captain, and only 3% of captains are women. And from that, it just started snowballing. One kid to the next kid to the next. And suddenly, since 2018, we've had 19 youth get their private pilot's licenses before or just after graduating high school.
At what point did you get your pilot's license in the middle of all this?
Yeah, so I got my pilot's license about 8 years ago. And I ran into this elder at the airport, and he said, you can work on your own airplane, right? And I was like, no, it's an airplane. And he's like, pull it into my hangar. And he has become one of my closest, most beloved friends. His name is George Coy, and he's the grandfather of Franklin County. And he and I started working on airplanes together, and I started coming up to Franklin County Airport so often. My phone was like, ding, 37 minutes, and with no traffic. Like, it would predict that I was heading up there. And so I started working with my hands, and then I was able to integrate our fellowship program at Big Picture Learning called Harbor Freight Fellowship Initiative, where you pair a youth with somebody who works in the trades, and after they complete a certain number of hours, they get a scholarship. And essentially what we're doing is we are elevating respect for the trades, for people who love to work with their hands, and rewriting that narrative about trades work. And like any good mentor, George was really encouraging me to keep on with my own flying. So you start off with a private pilot's license, and the next thing you go to is an instrument license, which allows you to fly through the clouds. It's, I think, probably one of the hardest licenses to get. It's extremely technical. You have to use all your instruments. You literally wear like this, I called it like a handmaid's tale kind of visor, and it simulates being in a cloud, and you can only look at your instruments. And so that took me about a year, and 2 weeks before my check ride, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. That was a pretty major deviation. And so instead of getting my instrument license, I got on this fast train with good medicine, and I had to undergo 8 rounds of chemo, a double mastectomy, 25 rounds of radiation, and an oophorectomy. And during that time, it was extremely hard, but I had all of this aviation family just pour out of the woodwork and pour their love into me, that I felt like I was the most loved human on the planet. And literally the dark night in December, when I had to go for my mastectomy, I was staying with my parents, and we left at like 4:30, 4:45 in the morning, and we were going up and over this hill and down this valley. And at this farm that I've passed for my whole life, there were these people outside, and they had these pink lights, and they had these signs. And they were like, "You got this, Beth. We're rooting for you." And I was like, I've never even met these farmers, but they had heard of my story, and they filed in behind the truck, and they escorted me to the hospital. And my dad pulled out, and he took this quick right instead of going down the hospital road. And I'm like, "Dad, you're going the wrong way." And he came down and around this corner, and I saw 50 trucks all lined up. And my youth aviation folks and friends all out with signs like, "We're beaming love to you." It was this truck parade that was headed by SD Ireland's gigantic cement truck, all lit up. It had breast cancer flags. There was a pink garbage truck. There was a pink oil person truck. Like, all of these people came out during COVID to say, like, "You got this. We have you." And it was just like this most remarkable feeling. And how can you not survive something like invasive ductal breast cancer when you just have all this love and really, really good medicine poured into you? And during those long nights, I had a lot of time to think about what I want written on my epitaph and what mark I wanted to do during this short time I have on the planet. And it just became clear that my passion, it is this marriage between education, aviation, working with your hands, and building Habitat for Aviation. So George said to me, "Beth, I'm turning 80 in November. How are we going to keep these things going?" And I said, "George, I survived breast cancer. I got this." And that fall, we established Habitat for Aviation.
Well, and it sounds like, in a way, the picture you were painting of all these trucks out there, they sound like they were your runway lights.
Yeah, they were. Our logo for Habitat is this windsock. And if you have ever been at an airport at night, these windsocks are lit up. And they give you a lot of direction. They also are a signal of home. And these guys were, a signal of like, you are home, you are going in the right direction, you are deeply loved and cared for. We got you, and you got this.
When did the idea that this ought to be specifically targeted towards girls and women come to you?
Yeah, so when I started unpacking the data, I would say that with only 2.6% of aviation mechanics being women, it just became a stark reality that with all of the shortages that we're about to face or are facing, if anybody's ever taken a flight, a lot of delays because there is so many retirees leaving the industry that, in order to open up the doors to the folks who've been underrepresented in the trades, that we really needed a concerted effort. And what better to sort of introduce and help girls see it to be it than having them engage in a real world, authentic project that had real ramifications. We're building a real airplane. It's gotta be correct. We are going to fly it. So it sort of dawned on me that this would be a great opportunity for women and girls to come together and to experience these successes and to come without any skills or knowledge in a really safe and welcoming space and be able to practice these skills to build relationships with one another and people in the industry. So there's meaning and then there's mattering. My boss, Elliot, says you need to have like meaning and mattering in order to have like really powerful learning experiences. And in this hangar, everybody matters. And I tell them constantly, you are necessary and we care. And we're sort of starting to identify and then break down certain barriers that have traditionally kept folks, especially women, from entering these fields.
This is your passion, and it means so much. Do you ever allow yourself the luxury of standing off to the side and looking at what's going on here?
That's a great question. I do love being able to just sort of take a step back and just see the magic that's happening. And I tell people, like, I can try to describe for you what this hangar is, but when you walk through the door, there's a feeling associated with being in this space. I'm sure you could.
I felt it the second I walked in the door.
Yeah, and how do you describe that for folks who haven't been?
The word magic came to mind. Well, so did you recognize as you started doing this that this would be about community in the same way that it's about teaching a trade?
Yeah, I think because I grew up, my whole career grew up based in the big picture learning philosophy, where you have advisories and you have cohorts of people that connect and stay together through all the years that they are in the school. You have folks in our community are powerful teachers. And so we also have to create a situation where people feel safe and connected in order to be pushed beyond their comfort zone and to try new things. And so I think just in my DNA, it's all about creating community. And so that was a very intentional ingredient in the formula of creating Habitat for Aviation.
You mentioned when we walked in the door that until the chemo and the radiation, you had bright red hair, and you would be kind of the spitting image of Rosie the Riveter if not for that.
Yeah, so I was this like really tenacious redhead, and some would maybe call stubborn, but I had this bright frizzy red hair, and it was so much part of my identity. And I had this very long conversation with death in exchange for my bright red hair, because the chemo stripped it all away. I was able to be gifted this second chance at life, and it's a small sacrifice, although I do miss my red locks. When people say, oh, go talk to that blonde girl over there, I'm like, who are they talking about? Like, I identify as a redhead. And it's just funny, the transitions that we have to face as human beings.
Do you feel like you understand something different about your identity now that isn't as wrapped up in the color of your hair?
I think that the strong, tenacious redheadedness that was me is stronger than ever. And I think there's a lot of stereotypes with redheads, and some of them are true. And I don't think just because my hair is more of a platinum and a tiny little ginger here and there, I don't think the redheadedness nature has left my being, which I'm grateful for.
Your eyebrows are still kind of red. Is the hope that someday this will not be the only either chapter of this or the only program like this that is entirely about girls and women building an airplane?
Yeah, so Habitat for Aviation exists to support the next generation of airplane mechanics and pilots. And this program, which is Women Build Planes, is just one element of what we do. And our intention is to build a world-class facility here at Franklin County Airport where people can come and they can get maybe an avionics training or a pilot's license or a mechanic's license or some of the above, depending on what their passions are. And then folks from around the globe can come and be coached up on how to create these habitats and to make the most of the ecosystems and the resources that they have in their locations, to create habitat hubs across the country and maybe in other parts of the world. We have the intention of establishing about 10 hubs in the next couple of years where we reach out to folks who are interested in supporting the next generation of airplane mechanics and pilots, so that we can then co-design a 1 or 2 day open hangar event with them, so that when we have our plane built in the summer of 29, we can engage in a barnstorming tour that takes us across the country. So our intention is to really, first of all, fly to all the airports in Vermont. We'll even come over to your neck of the woods in the North Country. We love our neighbors to the west.
You could go west with a night.
We could go west with a night. Yes. But we want to have like our pink airplane flying into these airports, and without even saying anything, you see a woman step out, and it's like, women build planes, women fix planes, women fly planes. And we have recently applied for this big grant to help offset the cost of that barnstorming tour, and we were so fortunate to have some really powerful partners sign on to this idea. One being the Amelia Earhart family, Beta Technologies, Big Picture Learning. So we just are surrounded by the most amazing support system, and I can't help but see this thing take off. And who wouldn't want a habitat at their airport?
So these girls and women that are building this airplane, not only do you just want it to be successful and successfully fly without there being mechanical issues, there's a lot riding on this in more ways than one.
Yeah. I think if you were to talk to some of our participants, I've been told that this program has given them a family, has in some cases saved their lives, given them a sense of hope and purpose. And I think what this is enabling us to do is just weaving the fabric of society a little tighter, and hopefully making lives better for everyone.
So when in all of this stuff that you do you have time to paint? Because we're surrounded by your artwork in here as well.
Yeah, so I love to paint. And this sort of came to me when Big Picture Learning had lost a grant, and they had to cut my position to half-time, and I was honestly a little peeved. And I'm such a workaholic that I blocked off my calendar and I wrote, Beth is offline. And then because I'm a busybody, I needed to have something to do. So I took this online course about mixed media art, and I watched 2 out of the 12 lessons, and I was like, I got this. And suddenly all this art started pouring out of me. And so I started thinking about all these women in history whose stories maybe haven't been told quite enough or at all. And I started painting their stories, and I have this bizarre mixed media approach where I use old pieces of plywood, and I kind of make a border out of paint that I boil, and so it gets all textury, and then I put down a layer of stamps that are related to that, postage stamps that are related to that topic or the message I'm trying to send. And I can't like not do it. It's become kind of like this addiction. And every time I hear this really inspirational story, I put it in my phone, like, okay, that's my next painting and that's my next painting. And now I didn't know that you could actually like max out a notes app on the iPhone, but I've maxed out an entire notes app of all the paintings I want to do. So now I'm on paintings 2 of my notes apps. And I wish I had a little bit more time. I think if I could wave my magic wand, I would get some more time to do more painting, because it does make my heart super happy.
Well, Beth White, thank you so much for sharing this story with us.
Thank you so much for coming. I hope you come back.
Beth White is the founder and pilot in command of Habitat for Aviation, an organization teaching young women to build and repair airplanes at their hangar in Swanton, Vermont. You can hear from several other members of the group and learn how you can help build the airplane that they're working on from links at ncpr.org/northwards. We'll take a quick break now, and when we come back, the words and music of Canadian singer-songwriter Jen Grant, all pulled together on a very personal new album. That's next on Northwards from North Country Public Radio.
NCPR's Northwards is supported by Swazo, Doty, and Associates, with offices in Bolton Landing and Lake Placid, committed to serving our communities through comprehensive engineering and infrastructure funding services. Details at sdapllc.com. And by Northern New York Community Foundation, serving Jefferson, Lewis, and St. Lawrence counties since 1929, helping donors fulfill their charitable giving goals to forever strengthen the places they love. Online at nnycf.org.
It's Northwards coming to you from NCPR. I'm Mitch Tyke. If you're fortunate enough to get a vinyl copy or even a CD of Jen Grant's new album, Queen of the Strait, spend some time with the cover art. The front and back cover of the album is a photo collage of some of the important people and things from various points in Grant's life. And it gives you some insight into the very personal songs that fill this latest record by the Canadian singer-songwriter. If you don't have a physical copy of the album, you can check out the cover at ncpr.org/northwards. There's a picture there. And as you'll hear in our conversation, the woman who looms large on both the cover and in the songs is Grant's mother, who passed away 13 years ago and who is very literally the queen in the center of the collage. Jen Grant joined us on the line from Lake Echo, Nova Scotia. Welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me.
So I was hoping we could start with what way back when we might have thought of as like literally the front door to this album, the cover itself. Even without knowing your mom, very nice, you were holding it up.
My husband did this collage from photos that I collected from my childhood, wraps all around. And before we talked about the album art, I had this picture in my head that was kind of like this, but it was a painting.
And you were a painter.
I am a painter. That's why I'm wearing there's paint all over my clothes. I'm wearing a Stars t-shirt for the listeners to represent a very cool Canadian band. But it's a lot of images of, there's different images from PEI, like this landscape on the front is from Bothwell, Prince Edward Island, where my mother was born and where we had property. And there's images of my father and me and my brother and my cousins and little bits of art from Rainbow Valley, which is a PEI famous theme park for kids that is no longer. And the ferry boat, and we got Pierre Trudeau on there, my grandfather, and Anna Green Gables' house, and a Mazda Miata, and my mother was the Azalea Queen, so she's in there with her crown, and all of the pets I've ever had, a spaceship, a cow, all kinds of stuff.
Well, and I was going to say, even without obviously knowing your mom personally, it's hard not to feel some emotion seeing all of these images of her, knowing how wrapped up this record is in her and her life. And there's the as you said, the image of her with her crown on, kind of front and center.
Front and center, taken over. I was like, are you supposed to be on the album cover more than me, mother? It is there's a lot of her in this record, but there's a lot of me too. It's a very autobiographical, but she's a big star in that. So
And it would be wrong to have the queen, to not have the queen of the straight right in the middle,
The queen
right?
does need to go in the front. People think that I'm referring to myself when I say the queen of the straight, which I enjoy. I do like it, but it's not really. It's really her.
Well, and you say it's an autobiographical record, and I imagine is that why the name on the record is not Jen Grant? It is Jennifer Winifred Pauline Grant.
Yeah, there was this clip of me as a kid where it's part of the show that we've been touring, this multimedia show that we created, where I talk to myself. I talk to the child version of myself at the beginning of the show, and the little girl of me is saying, "Don't you remember me? I'm Jennifer Winifred Pauline Grant." It was actually, this art was rejected by Apple because of that, because it didn't say Jen Grant on it. It
Huh.
said Jennifer Winifred Pauline Grant. So we had to do a different version where there was just, I think, no title. Like, I don't know, it was stupid, but I don't know why that matters.
Was it I mean, given how autobiographical the album is, I don't know that I've ever asked this question before, but was it an emotional experience to put this album cover together?
Kind of. I think I had to make some I had to do a bit of like reckoning. You know, you putting pictures of people, some of them you're having complicated relationships with, mostly my father. But my brother said this is a generous description of our childhood. It's dedicated to my brother, this record. He was like my partner in crime. And yeah, it's a lot about the journey that we went on together.
Well, yeah, tell us about that journey, because to comprehend the kind of narrative arc of this record is, I mean, I think the reason it felt so emotional to me is, you know, like anyone who's been a kid, but anyone who's had kids, you know, sort of sees this image of them as these small, hopeful beings, and it's hard to not to look at the cover and see pictures of you and think of you as a kid and what was waiting for you.
Oh, that's so sweet. Um, I think that when I think about my life and I think about my childhood, it's very colorful. There was a lot of adventure. And that was a decision, that was a choice that my mother made to create adventure and magic when it could have been very different. It could have been really depressing because there was a lot of infidelity going on, a lot of traumas around us. And it's just like been lit with this with this sparkle that she gave to it. And I think as a result, I am someone who moves through the world that way. And so is my brother. And this is how it's instilled in me. And I definitely see myself passing that on to my children. And yeah, I think I think that, you know, and a lot of what the multimedia show is about, my dog is sneezing. Sorry. That, bless you, girl. There's a theme of legacy throughout the show, of that it is not something that is instilled in us when we are born, but it's the culmination of choices that we make throughout our life, whether they're big or small choices, that they all matter, and they all lead into this idea, this important idea of our shared humanity. And I think that that's what I'm trying to do with my life, is just make little decisions or bigger decisions that can, you know, help, you know, make the world a better place, for lack of a better way to say that. And just have joy, to try to choose to have joy. I know that everyone can't choose to have joy, but I have the choice to do that. I have the ability. My mental health is strong enough that I can choose it.
Yeah, yeah. How old were you when you were able to process this idea that your mom made a conscious choice to choose joy, or to, you know, take you and your brother on this adventure rather than what it could have been? Because I imagine you didn't realize that as you were a kid.
No, I think that I realize it all the time. I just drove to PEI recently by myself, which I never did. I had this mental block about driving to Prince Edward Island alone, because I got my license really late and I had a lot of anxiety around driving. But I was driving in Toronto and stuff but not driving to PEI, but I had to because my father is not well. And just even doing that, like driving and going by the Wandelin Hotel, motel that we would stay at. Like she'd create this little motel adventure halfway through as well. Just seeing like certain signs, being like, oh, she would have passed here and decided, I've now left PEI. Maybe I'm free to do what I want. Maybe I'll stay. Maybe I'll take the kids to this adventure at this motel. Just like all the steps she had to take to have freedom and sort of to fight for her freedom. I think it's like I'm reliving it somehow.
I was crying in the dark next to the 401. Threw your back over your shoulder, smell of cigarettes and rum. Tried to put my foot on the gas, never did learn how to drive. I was 27 then, I thought it's live or die, I gotta stay alive. Ooh, nobody knows how I fall apart. Nobody knows how you broke my heart.
Well, and never having been to PEI, I gather it is a place that if you had grown up in Toronto, everything might have changed since you were a kid. But are there still? It sounds like there are still many vestiges of what PEI might have looked like and felt like when you were that age.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the east end of Prince Edward Island, where we spent a lot of summers, where my mother grew up, is still exactly the same. We don't own the land anymore, but it's just really, it's a field. The fields and water, and it's a lot of memories in there.
Well, it strikes me that there are a lot of breakup records in the world, but they are typically about the artist's breakup. I mean, and you have written one of those, if I'm not mistaken, really kind of early in your career.
Yeah, I did. I think I was still not really ready to like write a breakup record, but I tried to.
Well, but it strikes me that there are not a lot of records that are about their parents' breakup. Like the song that I wanted to ask you about is just in so many layers, and to think about it, it just seems so heartbreaking. The song "Take Me to the Movies."
On the last day I was 39, I sold the land, no longer mine. When I look back, I just go back in time to running past the blueberries. The old car burned out in the trees. The stars over the flag raised on the beam. You made figure eights in the sand, tried your best to understand.
This record was co-produced by Daniel Ledwell, my husband, and Joshua Van Tassel, and this song makes Josh cry. When I talk about this land that's on the cover in Bothwell, Prince Edward Island, it was divided up. My grandmother divided up between her 7 children, and then my mother and my brother and I had this plot of land. And then because of a lot of strife in that family and people selling things, and it was no longer what I wanted it to be. It became kind of a sad place. And so I start this song about talking about selling it after my mother died. My brother and I sold the land, and then I took that money, and my husband and I, we bought a cottage in a different place in PEI, and I've really been healing my relationship with Prince Edward Island, I think, and healing my childhood wounds through creating these new memories with my children. Luckily, from a place of like real joy and happiness, and in really a happy partnership with my husband, who I really love co-parenting with. And it talks about the land there. It just talks about my memories of that area, and on images of we had a cottage on that land, and my dad had been having an affair for like 8 years, and she kept trying to make the relationship work. and he couldn't leave his mistress. And there's this image of my mom just on the beach and making figure eights in the sand. And it's just one of those actions she would do, like after, if she had like a toasted tomato sandwich and a cup of tea, she'd always kind of rub her hands together and make this sound with her hands after, or like little things like that you remember. And I can always remember her making these figure eights in the sand. And that's would mean she was in a sort of a peaceful but reflective moment. And I think she spent a lot of time trying to figure out how she could salvage this relationship with this man that she really adored, who was an awful husband. Yeah, it talks about us just kind of being on the sand dunes and playing together, and all of these plans that would go into accommodating my dad. It's like my mother had us the whole year, and she raised us, and then there would be so much energy that would go into when he would want to pick us up for Christmas, that type of thing. Or if he was going to take us out, we always did the same thing where we would go for Chinese food and we would go to a movie. And I loved that, but it was always that. And also there was very, very few times that we got to be with him alone without his wife. Yeah, I guess it's just kind of about that, like about this unbalance and kind of accommodating him, who I love, where he didn't really deserve it.
Understanding that element of what your dad was like, it might seem surprising that to people that there would be pictures of him on the cover.
I love him. There is another record brewing in my mind right now that I can totally feel. Because this record is a lot about sort of like, there's sadness and beauty in it, and it's about me, and it's about my brother, how much I love my brother. But there's a lot of other stuff that I haven't written about that probably I'm going to. It's like also trying to figure out what is going on. Like there's so many things that were going on that I'm just still figuring it out.
Is it, and maybe this is just what an artist does, but does it strike you at all as unusual to be figuring this out in front of an audience?
No, it doesn't really. It feels very natural. It's a little bit weird, and I'm a little bit weird, so that makes sense. I don't do normal things. This isn't correct. This feels correct.
We haven't even mentioned the song that kicks off this album, which is another one that when you understand what it's about, it's hard to not listen to it and start crying. But tell us what the significance of the Jim Cuddy dress is.
Yeah, my mom and I took her to the Juno Awards in Ottawa in 2012, and I didn't know Jim yet. I'm very close to him now. But at the time I didn't know him, and my mom was a real big fan of his, and he's the singer of this iconic Canadian band, Blue Rodeo. And so we went to Ottawa, and we saw him by himself in the atrium, and we were coming down the escalators, and I said, I think she must have been like, "Oh my God." And I was like, "Okay, let's go over and I'll introduce you to him, or let's say hi or something." And I took their photo, and he was very sweet. And then after that, we had to go right home because my mom had chosen a specific dress for the Juno Awards because she had metastatic breast cancer and it had spread to her liver already. And so her liver was filling with fluid and swollen, and we needed to cover that swelling up. And so she met Jim in this dress, what she was wearing. When we left the Junos, we basically had to go right into the hospital. And we were in the room, and she said, "When I die, I think I would like to be laid to rest in my Jim Cuddy dress." And I said, "Okay, Mom." And we planned this ceremony of life that we had for her at the park and everything. But before that, and right after she died, there was, she was at this funeral home. Her body was at the funeral home. And I went there with my brother and my husband and Charlie, our Labradoodle. Mom and I had a shared dog. Charlie, the Labradoodle. And she was in this pine box because they were trying to sell us this expensive box, and she was going to be cremated as well. But, our connection to nature and spirituality and everything, it doesn't lend itself to a fancy box. It lends itself more to like the earth. And for me, I thought this pine box makes the most sense. And she was wearing the Jim Cuddy dress.
Picked out the cheapest box, 'cause you didn't believe in the cost. It was a make-believe funeral. You're in your Jim Cuddy dress. It was the gold cup and saucer parade. All of the plans that we made for the gold cup and saucer parade. Nothing that's real ever fades. Nothing that's real.
And Danny was playing the Beach Boys on the organ. And my brother was sitting there and he was just watching everything. And I was dancing with Charlie. And she looked beautiful. And I did her makeup. And in the song, I talk about the make-believe funeral. And that's what that was.
And I think you were making me cry now. Sorry.
This is my first time making a joke. I'm excited.
Canadian singer-songwriter Jen Grant's latest album is called Queen of the Strait. We'll hear the rest of our conversation in just a moment. This is Northwards from North Country Public Radio.
Production of Northwards on NCPR is supported by The Bookstore Plus, Lake Placid, supplier of books, stationery, art supplies, and more with online shopping available. More at thebookstoreplus.com. And by Tug Hill Tomorrow Land Trust, increasing awareness, appreciation, and stewardship of the Tug Hill region for over 30 years. TugHillTomorrowLandTrust.org.
Northwards from NCPR continues. I'm Mitch Tyke. So happy you could listen today. We're talking in this part of the show with singer-songwriter Jen Grant. Her latest album is a largely autobiographical collection of songs called Queen of the Strait. How do you think your mom's approach to parenting is reflected in yours?
Very much. It's constant. She has a real energy in the house. My kids are hearing a lot about her all the time. And I literally hear her voice when I talk sometimes or when I laugh or something. We have a lot of similarities. And the adventure thing is, I really, really instill it. Going to the grocery store, adventure. Just like, what are we going to do today? Let's go on an adventure. And it could just be nothing. It's like you go to a cafe and you go to the grocery store, but there's like, you got to make it the adventure. Yeah, I mean, I'm using all of her parenting tools.
I have to say that was one of my favorite ways of approaching parenting. I guess it still is, but my kids are 18 and 22 now, and it's somewhat harder to portray a trip to the cafe as an adventure. But part of me wishes or hopes they still see it that way.
Yeah, I saw it that way when I was 30. Go to Winners and buy a pillow for the couch. Adventure.
You mentioned at one point, we've talked a lot about your mom and some about your brother and even your dad, but there is one song on the album that, if I'm not mistaken, is actually about your grandfather, who is a man that really seems worth knowing about.
Yes, what song is that?
Is it Sea Glass?
Yes, it is. So that song is about a few different things. So it starts off about my Aunt Gail. She had a baby that died when it was 3 days old, and her name was Danielle, and she was named after my grandfather, Daniel J. MacDonald, the Honorable Daniel J. MacDonald, and he was many things. He was a politician, he was a potato farmer, and cows and other things. father of 7. He was a double amputee World War II vet. And I think that really this song is about ancestry and lineage and being in a place in the world right in a time in the world right now where sometimes I wish I could ask my ancestors for advice. And if I was to ask someone, it would be him, I think, because he went through a time where he was seeing the world kind of at its worst as well and could have lost hope but didn't.
But what the world needs now is love, and it only comes from freedom and your wild heart. I met you feel like, but I can't give it up, no. So I hope I can make you proud.
And it's about, well, my Aunt Gail, she, even though she had this loss, she showed me how to keep a connection. Like she has this connection with her daughter. And she uses blue lights to honor her, and she'll put a blue light in the garden, or she'll send one to me, and it's like, those are for Danielle. And I think that I'm connected to Danielle too. I think I've heard her voice before, like to whisper lyrics in my ears twice. And she collects blue sea glass from the ocean, and she has this extreme connection to her father and my mother. And I've recently just felt this sort of like a kindred spiritness with him through my own sense of wanting to be very public with my own voice, talking about the genocide in Palestine and all of that stuff that is absolutely horrible, and just really feeling like a responsibility as a very privileged woman over here, that there are extreme hardships going on in the world that are just so unnecessary and so pointless. And I think that he would fight for that too. And sometimes it's hard to, when you decide to be public about something, it can affect relationships. But like in your family, I had a lot of, there was a lot of throwback to me initially as well. That's fine. That's over too. But there was a bit of, she was worried about me, talking about that kind of stuff. And
there was pushback about your being vocal about the things going on in the world.
Yeah, there was, yeah.
But you and Gail are
love Gail. Yeah, she's just trying to protect me, and she's on her journey as well, and we're very, very close, and she understands that and what I'm saying in the song is that I get it from her, and she gets it from her father, and we're all the same.
There is really this amazing picture of your grandfather on like up near
Isn't
the
that
top
cool?
of the record. Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah, he's got one arm and one leg. He's got a prosthetic arm there with a hook, and he's farming. And he's very present in my multimedia show. So I feel like we've been together a bunch lately.
And he would have died around the time you were born, is that right?
Yes, that's right. He died when I was 3 months old.
Yeah. There is a lot of death in this record.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really big part of life. Yeah.
What is your brother's take on the album, in as much as it was dedicated to him, or is dedicated to him?
He was saying, well, he thinks it's very beautiful and generous, he says.
He's not a musician, is he?
He's a cinematographer. He's in Spain right now shooting season 2 of Murderbot with Alexander Skarsgård.
I feel bad for not knowing there was a season 1 to Murderbot.
It's okay. I watched season 1 recently. It was very good. He turned down Heated Rivalry, which I should stop saying all the time, but he did turn it down because I think there was no money at the time, and he was like, I need to support my family. But he's done some incredibly beautiful projects. Station 11 was probably my favorite. He loves this record. Yeah, he loves all my records.
Well, that's good.
And his wife too, who I set him up with, who I love, and their children, and her whole family. Yeah, I'm very lucky.
So, Jen Grant, what is the adventure for the rest of the day?
I'm going to the studio, my art studio, to finish painting a cardinal. I can't wait. It's big and we're going to do lots of gold and gold bits. It's almost done. And I'm probably going to paint. I've been painting a lot lately, and I'm doing a painting project that correlates with this record too. Yeah, and it's really cloudy and cold out. But I really love being in the garden so much. But I only like to do it when it's nice out. And then the kids will come home and we'll have to make some dinner. Maybe we'll light a bunch of candles because it's cold and dreary, and pray for spring.
Well, Jen Grant, it's been a delight to chat with you. I hope
too.
it's not 13 or 16 years before we talk again, and I hope you'll find your way to at least nearby in Ontario or Quebec, so I can see you in this what sounds like a really amazing multimedia show sometime soon.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Jen Grant lives in Nova Scotia. Her latest album is called Queen of the Strait, and you can find more about her and the new album at ncpr.org/northwards. So glad you could tune in for this month's edition of the program. Digital oversight of the show comes from Ethan Shanty and Bill Hanel. Anna Williams-Bergen does our social media. We are produced at the NCPR studios in Canton, New York, and our theme music is by the Wickmore Jazz Trio of Plattsburgh. I'm Mitch Teich, your host and producer. Don't forget, you can subscribe to the Northwards podcast and get new interviews delivered to you every week on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, and the many other places fine quality podcasts are delivered. Find out more about the show at ncpr.org/northwards. Thanks again for listening, and I sure hope you'll join us again soon for another edition of Northwards from North Country Public Radio.